in space took off at 10:08. He reports that everything is perfect and working well.
With wit and wisdom, John F. Kennedy addressed the unique events of his day and spoke passionately to issues that still burn today.
How many weapons do you need and how many megatons do you need to destroy?
E.G. Marshall hosts Thank You, Mr. President, the press conferences of JFK.
The news conferences of JFK, Sunday at 8.
Regular, decaffeinated, and pre-measured packs. After all, who knows more about coffee than Mr. Coffee?
The world champion Sting meet the Pittsburgh Spirit to benefit United Cerebral Palsy Thursday, January 10th at the Chicago Stadium.
For tickets, call 558-KICK.
Get into scouting. Be a Girl Scout leader.
Good evening. I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline.
Hello?
It was 1 year ago, the breakup of that most venerable of American monopolies, the telephone company. It was supposed to make life easier and cheaper for you, the consumer. But has it? Could it all have been a terrible mistake? That's our focus tonight.
This is ABC News Nightline. Reporting from Washington, Ted Koppel.
Possibly, probably, when you first heard a couple of years or more ago that AT&T was in the process of being broken up, probably you felt a tiny quiver of satisfaction. There is a little something in most of us that says when something gets to be too big, too powerful, break it up. Well, a year ago, it happened. But AT&T doesn't appear to be suffering. They seem to be doing very nicely, thank you. It is the small to average consumer, especially those who rarely use long distance, who are feeling the pinch and the confusion. We can't do anything about the former, but with this report from Nightline correspondent Jed Duval, let's see what we can do about dispelling a little bit of the confusion.
They say that breaking up is good to do, but then they send 6 bills to you. Don't say it's fate, my friend, including breaking up. They're also jacking up the rates again.
It used to be one giant telephone company, and it did everything. Rented you the phone, hooked it up, fixed it, and sent you a bill. One bill. A year ago, AT&T was broken up. 7 operating companies were assigned regions in which to provide local service, your call across the street or across town.
What would long-distance phone service be if it only served selected cities at selected hours?
AT&T was given the more lucrative long-distance business, but in a largely unregulated market, out there competing with the newer long-distance firms.
Imagine competing with AT&T and winning by building a long-distance network more modern than theirs.
What Americans got was a whole new telephone arrangement and confusion.
Every time you turn around, you got a different phone bill.
It's just more pages in the phone bill, and you have to figure out who you're paying.
I found whenever I did have a question about my phone service, I'd call up the phone company, and the people on the other end of the phone seemed as confused or more confused than I did.
Besides confusion and complaints that service isn't what it used to be, another result of divestiture has been changing costs to the consumer. The new competition was supposed to produce a severe drop in long-distance charges. Instead, the reduction has been only 6% generally.
Only one company comes with no surprises, AT&T. The more you hear, the better we sound.
Technically, AT&T does sound better. Its higher quality hookups cost more. AT&T's rates are still regulated, can't come down too far. That enables its competitors to keep prices higher than they might. And those competitors have found the going tougher than expected, switching machinery costing more. All those factors have tended to keep long-distance charges from falling faster. Local phone rates are up. In the past year, the average increase has been 16% countrywide. There is every indication local charges will continue to rise. Why? In the old days, long distance subsidized the home telephone. Those days are gone for good. The 7 operating companies were left with the local business, the least lucrative part of telephone markets. An access charge of $1 goes on the average residential phone bill next June to help local companies pay for the connections to long-distance lines. And those companies are charging more and will be asking for still greater charges later to pay what analysts call genuine costs. And that's what's happened in Brownsville, Texas. That's where Ben and Reuben Edelstein run the furniture stores first opened by their father in 1906. For years, the Edelsteins have rented 4 lines to San Benito, Texas, 20 miles away, to a branch store. Leased lines they cannot do business without. Traditionally, the cost of the lines was in the hundreds of dollars each month. But in the middle of last year, things changed.
Well, in the San Benito area, the 4 leased lines or their modems increased from $430.90 in May. In June, the charges for these same 4 lines escalated to $1,591.96.
That's not counting the taxes, and it's not over yet.
I remember somebody from the telephone company that we were talking to at this time just made the remark that you ain't seen nothing yet.
The Edelsteins may save money with a technique called bypass. Normally all calls are switched through the local telephone company. With bypass, though, a customer arranges private microwave or fiber optic connections to bypass the local phone company for local or long-distance calling or both. Ordinary users cannot afford such expensive solutions, but large businesses can. Some have started using bypass. And that frightens local telephone companies. If enough large users employ bypass, then a larger burden will fall on the average user to pay the costs of running a local phone system. There is a promise in divestiture, a promise of a future with a more efficient, high-technology telephone system for America, one with more services, more productivity, lower prices. AT&T sought the divestiture to be able to offer computers and other communications advances, to, in other words, zoom into the future. So far, all that is only a promise. Judd Duval for Nightline from Washington.
When we come back, we'll look more closely at the promise and the reality as we talk with 2 people who really know what the telephone business is all about. Alfred Kahn, Jimmy Carter's former chief economic advisor on inflation, and William Newport, vice president of Bell Atlantic, one of the regional phone companies created out of the AT&T breakup.
This is ABC News Nightline, brought to you by Chrysler Plymouth.
You know, when we put 5-year, 50,000-mile powertrain protection on every Chrysler-built car, we invited GM, Ford, and everybody else to do the same. Instead, they put better powertrain protection on their expensive Lincolns and Cadillacs than on their Fords and Chevys. Now, that's not right, since it's a little guy who made them so big. Well, we have another invitation. We're putting the same 550 protection on every Dodge truck we build. And we invite the industry to follow us, to put 5-year, 50,000-mile protection on a truck. They owe it to America. No matter whether you buy a Chrysler-built car or truck, pay $6,000 or $16,000, buy a Plymouth, Dodge, or Chrysler, you get 550 protection. The name is Plymouth, the quality is Chrysler. The name is Dodge, the quality is Chrysler. So is the protection. We have one and only one ambition for Chrysler, to be the best. What else is there?
Tell me the truth, Sam. Does Reynolds Plastic Wrap really cling better than the leading brand?
Watch this. Reynolds Plastic Wrap and the leading brand.
Oh, the Reynolds holds its shape better.
That's the secret to Reynolds' super tight cling. But here's the real test. Wrap 2 pieces of cheese, wait 5 minutes, and see for yourself.
Seeing is believing, Sam.
Remember, for better cling, use Reynolds Quality Plastic Wrap, the plastic wrap professionals use.
Continental Bank has a major new 6-month investment certificate. It comes with an option to renew for another 6 months at the same high rate. You can't lose. It's the first of its kind, and it's just the beginning. We've also found a way to simplify your life with Express Service Centers. They can cut the time of account opening and many other services in half, and it's still just the beginning.
Thursday on 2020.
What kept the children quiet in the alleged preschool sex abuse case in California?
Behavioral modification was definitely there.
Watch 2020 Thursday.
Our focus tonight is your telephone service 1 year after the breakup of AT&T. Have you really gained anything? Joining us live from Syracuse, New York, Alfred Kahn, professor of political economy at Cornell University. Mr. Kahn served as Jimmy Carter's chief economic advisor on inflation. More to the point, he is also a former economic advisor to AT&T. In our Washington bureau, William Newport, executive vice president of Bell Atlantic, one of the companies created by the AT&T breakup. It services the mid-Atlantic states. Professor Kahn, where are we today? Where were we supposed to be, do you think, a year ago when all of this first happened?
Well, first, we are certainly witnessing the results of opening this industry to competition. That's something that didn't depend upon breaking up AT&T. That's something that started 25 years ago when the federal government first permitted private companies to put in their own private microwave systems. It then let MCI in. It let in other so-called specialized common carriers. Satellite communications companies began to permit people to put their own terminal equipment on, their own switchboards, their own answering machines, to own their own phones. And the effects of that increase in competition are apparent all around us.
Where? How?
Well, there's not a day passes when you don't read in the newspapers about some new venture, some new complicated set of uses of new technologies to satisfy wants that nobody ever knew about before. That's been going on for a long time, but I mean, all you have to do is read the paper. There are new apartment house developments which have their own phone systems, their own teleconferencing, their own access to computers. Companies are putting up their own transmitting towers on their roofs and going right to satellites and coming down to their own branch offices elsewhere.
And yet, if I said to you, and I'm going to say to you first, and I'm going to say to Mr. Newport and get his reaction, if I said to you that my sense of it is that the average consumer today feels more confused and is unable to see any immediate benefit, would you argue with me?
Not at all. That is the inevitable consequence of deregulation. Remember how people have complained and still complain about the profusion of airfares. How travel agents say they don't know from one moment to the next what's the cheapest fare available. Confusion, unquestionably, but compounded by something quite different, and that was the breakup of AT&T. Deregulation, opening up the industry to competition, did not necessarily require that the Bell system be broken up. I'm not necessarily saying that was a bad thing, but that has increased the confusion.
All right, if I were to say to you, Mr. Newport, that the breakup was a good thing for AT&T, maybe not so good for the small to average consumer, would you argue with me?
I think a little bit, Ted. What we've gotten here is some confusion, yes, although the people that we talk to, our consumers, tell us a lot less now than we used to have. But what we really have is a lot more choice on the part of consumers. You can choose from whom you buy your telephone, or whether you want to buy it or lease it. You can choose what style you want, how durable you want it to be. You can choose your long-distance company.
Yeah, but all of that, with the exception of the last point, the long-distance company, is essentially in the category of frills. If what I'm concerned about is, does my phone work? Can I get it fixed when it breaks? Can I get through to a person who is going to fix it for me or let me know how I can get it fixed? That seems to be a much more confusing area than it was a year ago.
Well, it was definitely very confusing on January the 1st of 1984 because consumers were not used to purchasing communication services from a variety of suppliers. But I think that's changed quite a bit. And in fact, we talk to our customers every day. We use an outside firm to survey the quality of our service, and they've told us that our service is better now in our territory than it was in 1983 before divestiture.
Why has the price of local calls gone up, and why does it look as though it's going to go up even more?
That's an inevitable consequence of technology and competition, as Fred Kahn indicated. In a competitive environment, prices have to reflect the costs of providing the service.
But usually in a competitive environment, the price goes down. The more competition you have, in theory, the lower the price becomes. It seems to be working the other way as far as local phone calls are concerned.
Well, what we have had in the communication system in this country prior to divestiture was one company that provided all aspects of it. Now we have a variety of companies that provide different aspects. And what used to be a subsidy from long-distance service is being eliminated over time, and therefore local rates will inevitably have to go up because there will no longer be a subsidy from long distance to keep those rates low.
Jed Duvall explained to us what this bypass notion is about. That is, there are some companies now that are saying, hey, you're going to be too expensive for me, Atlantic Bell, so we are going to bypass you altogether, and we're going to go to the long-distance service provided by AT&T by using our own system. But the average consumer can't do that, can he?
No, the average consumer can't, but the average consumer has an interest in that issue being resolved in an economic way. Bypass is really nothing more than competition for local network services. We're not afraid to compete. In fact, we welcome it. However, the prices have to be permitted to move to reflect our costs of providing service, and that has not happened yet.
All right, let us just take a break for a moment, because when we come back, we're going to be joined by Kathleen O'Reilly. She heads a Wisconsin group lobbying to protect consumers' rights in light of the breakup of AT&T.
The Honda Civic four-door sedan has clean lines and a handsome profile. A very spacious interior. A long list of standard equipment. And advanced engineering. In fact, the Civic four-door offers so much, it makes the search for the perfect family sedan seem like child's play.
As the following series of unrehearsed scenes should tell you, when Mrs. Pauls asked critics to try their crispy, crunchy fish sticks and fillets, they gave them a rave. Mrs. Pauls, crispier, crunchier fish sticks and fish fillets. When was the last time your kids had this much fun eating something this good? Mrs. Pauls, it tastes good because it is good.
If you're looking for the most value for your money, test drive an 85 Chevette at Solozzi Edelson Chevrolet.
We have a huge selection of Chevettes in stock, ready for immediate delivery.
Prices like this have made Solozzi Edelson Chevrolet the #1 dealer in Chicagoland.
And we guarantee you can't beat our deal on any Chevrolet car or truck, or we'll give you back the difference in cash.
At Solozzi Edelson Chevrolet in Elmhurst at York and Roosevelt Roads. Where you always save more money.
Oh, I discovered a new store. Well, not a new store, but new to me. Montgomery Ward. New because I didn't know they carried so many brand names. Sony, Maytag, Jordache, and selection. In microwaves alone, I saw 9 different models. So I became a new Montgomery Ward customer.
Things are changing at Montgomery Ward, and we're earning some pretty tough customers.
Quick Fix and Foods are on sale this week at Jewel. Nothing's easier to serve than Totino's Party Pizza, only 99 cents each. Prepare a side dish in minutes with Green Giant Harvest fresh vegetables, just 99 cents each. Or how about our farm stand Wisconsin russet potatoes? A 10-pound bag is only 89 cents. It's easy to save time and money with these values through Wednesday at Jewel.
Joining us now from our affiliate WKOW in Madison, Wisconsin, Kathleen O'Reilly, Executive Director of the Citizens Utility Board of Wisconsin, a citizens lobbying group that has fought increases in local phone rates. Tempting as it is, Ms. O'Reilly, to start a debate. I'd rather we didn't do that tonight. I'd rather see if we can't explain some of the things that have been confusing so many consumers. What are the greatest complaints that you are getting in terms of consumers, A, feeling they don't understand what's going on, or B, feeling they're getting ripped off in any way?
I think that the greatest consumer anger and frustration has to do with cost. They see that local costs are being skyrocketed and every type of telephone service is going up. And they hear that it's because of the breakup of Ma Bell that this has to be. And we've heard tonight that this is supposedly inevitable. But I think we need to remind ourselves that the basic purpose of the breakup of AT&T was to provide competition and therefore lower rates for long-distance calls and for equipment. But the judge who wrote that order set up rules to make sure that only that happened. And Judge Green said that local rates should not be allowed to increase because of divestiture. He also said the phone company had not made the case that local calls had been subsidized by long distance.
All right, I'm going to stop you right there because that's the third time tonight. Judge Duvall mentioned that, and Mr. Newport mentioned that a moment ago. Now you're mentioning it.
Maybe we
have always been told that the phone company made a lot of money on long-distance calls, and out of the profits that it made on long-distance calls, it subsidized, that is, it helped to pay for the local phone calls so that they were able to keep the local phone calls low, the cost of those down. Now you are telling me that's not necessarily so.
It's not necessarily so. In fact, it's bogus. Judge Green said that they had not made the case, and in fact, a number of respected economists around the country have blown that argument out of the water. And let me give you just one example as to the type of distorted arithmetic the phone companies have used to make that case. It's not that long ago that our telephone numbers had only 4 digits. That's all we needed for local calls. But to accommodate long-distance calls, they transferred the entire system to 7 digits. That was very expensive. It was necessary for long-distance telephoning. But the phone company carried that on the books as if it were a cost for local service. They have really slapped on to the local rates millions and millions of dollars that come from long-distance rates.
Okay, we are starting to slip into what I hoped we could avoid, and that is a mild debate. But let me at least give Mr. Newport a chance to respond to that, and let's see if we can get back then to clarify. Mr. Newport?
Yes, I think, Ted and Kathleen, we really need to look at some facts here. First of all, Judge Green did not deal with the issue of the economics of the telephone system. He dealt with the specific issues before him in the antitrust case. And they were not issues of local costs. Secondly, just recently, a joint board of the state regulators and the federal regulators all agreed that an access charge of $1 a month needed to be placed on local service users in order to assure the continued health and viability of the network.
Well, I must disagree with you, because Judge Green expressly did come to a conclusion on the subsidy argument and said that the telephone companies had not made the case.
Folks, let me interrupt, Ms. O'Reilly, because we're in deathly danger of the two of you talking only to one another and leaving all the rest of us behind.
Well, maybe if we go back to the consumer frustration,
all right,
we can take a look at who are the winners and the losers. And I think that if the current policies continue, the winners will be a handful of the largest corporations, and the losers will be all residential customers, and that's 75% of the businesses in this country that don't even make many long-distance calls. And one of the other major threats, which is very seldom talked about, is the fact that the local telephone companies want to use all of this increased revenue that's coming from increased local rates so that they can get into real estate, computer data processing. They want to diversify. And if this is not stopped, they will be competing with businesses all over this country who do not have the advantage of using monopoly money to be able to develop that kind of a venture.
All right, let's ignore for a moment, if we can, the second part of that and focus, Mr. Newport and then Professor Kahn, on the first part. Winners, losers. Clear winners, businesses who use a lot of long distance. They are finding their bills are coming down.
Businesses and consumers who use a lot of long distance.
Who use a lot of long distance.
Yes,
but can you give me a sense of what percentage of your usership engages in a lot of long distance and what uses, you know, just the Christmas calls, the Thanksgiving calls, very little long distance?
About half of our users use long distance regularly each month.
to what degree, I mean, if someone gets a $30, $40 phone bill each month, what part of that would be long distance, what part of that would be local call?
Generally, about half of that would be long distance and the rest would be local calls. But Ted, if I might make a point on the cost issue, we lose perspective here. In our territory, in New Jersey, for example, local rates went up less in the last decade than the price of renting a videotape for one evening. I hardly think that's an exorbitant price increase, particularly when the consumer price increase was 3 times what the increase was in local phone rates.
All right, one second. I want to go to Professor Kahn, because it strikes me that that is a reasonable point. Is it true, Professor, that over the years the telephone service has really been underpriced, that we have actually had a rather cheap phone service?
There's no question that it has been very cheap. Over the last 40 years, the basic monthly charge for telephone service has gone up less than half as rapidly as the consumer price index. So in real terms, it has fallen by more than 50%. That's point number one. Point number two, it's a matter of simple historical fact that every year the regulators got together, the state regulators and the federal regulators, and shoved a larger and larger proportion of the costs, not of local service, the cost of hooking people up to the telephone system, just of giving them a dial tone. When I was first writing about it 20 years ago, when I was opposing AT&T and I was arguing for more competition, at that time the markup on long-distance calls was about 15%. As a result of this essentially political process of shoving the costs over to long distance. Last year, it was a markup of 60%. Finally, the best test of which prices are above cost and which are not is to open it to the market and see where the competitors go. Where are the competitors going? They are all honing in on the long-distance market. That is the best objective test that we have been holding those rates well above cost.
We are literally down to our last minute. Sure. Winners, losers, Professor Kahn, very quickly.
There's no question that the regular householder, residential users who makes no long-distance calls is facing higher bills. And that's just the opposite of airline deregulation, where it was the people of modest income who have been benefiting, and that's what makes it so tough.
All right, Ms. O'Reilly, you were trying to get in. You got 30 seconds to make a final point.
We have lost sight of the fact that we have been talking here about monopolies. The losers are all local customers, and the winners are a handful of large corporate customers. And if these policies continue, we are going to see a basic change not only in telephone service in this country, but also in the basic economic system.
All right, Mr. Newport,
totally indefensible.
15 seconds.
I think, Ted, it's too early to say there are winners and losers. I would say that customers who now have choices are going to be able to design their service to meet their needs without having to reach into anybody else's pocket to help pay for it.
Ms. O'Reilly, gentlemen, thank you both very much. I'll be back in a moment.
You're looking at a prime example of the new forward thinking at Ford. A family sedan conceived and created to change your thinking about family sedans. Its name, Ford Tempo, with front-wheel drive for sure-footed traction. It's a family sedan that doesn't look or act like one. Front-wheel drive Ford Tempo, the forward-thinking car. Have you driven the best-built American cars? Have you driven a Ford lately?
Just $28 will feed one of these children for a month.
You can have my check, Interfaith.
The Interfaith Hunger Appeal. Right now, Protestants, Catholics, and Jews are working together to help people in 125 countries.
You can have my check, Interfaith.
$22 will buy 50 bags of seed to help a village turn a battlefield into a rice field.
You can have my check, Interfaith.
Interfaith Hunger Appeal, P.O. Box 1000, New York 10150. You are the hope of the hungry. Please give.
His Royal Highness, the Prince.
Standing on receiving lines takes its toll and it takes time. Gentlemen, but you could take a different view, cause you might meet a prince or two. Gentlemen,
walking, running, standing on your feet for hours, we're Hanes Alive, the beautiful sheer support.
And when that prince is someone who really wants to be with you,
gentlemen prefer Hanes in eye-catching fashion colors too.
It's here, Evans multi-million-dollar fur sale with fox, mink, and more at extraordinary prices you are ready for. Save 1/3 to 1/2 and more at Evans. Are you ready?
If you find taxes taxing,
In place of the family dog, we suggest the family cat. Dreyfus tax-exempt funds.
You'll be surprised to see just how much you know on Chicago's Trivia Test.
All right, that's terrific.
Jeopardy! Weekdays at 3:30 on Channel 7.
Start your day on the right track for early breaking stories and what you missed overnight. I'm Steve Bell.
And I'm Kathleen Sullivan. Watch ABC's World News this morning before Good Morning America tomorrow.
I'm David Hartman. Tomorrow we'll find out what issues face the 99th Congress when it returns. Also, Detroit Tigers outfielder Kirk Gibson and Mary Lou Retton on Good Morning America.
Tomorrow on the ABC News Magazine 2020, a new look at that alleged preschool sex abuse case in California. What kept the children quiet? That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.
This has been Nightline. For a transcript of tonight's broadcast, send $2 to Journal Graphics, Box 234, Ansonia Station, New York, New York 10023. Nightline is a presentation of ABC News.
Thursday at 8, 7 Central. If you have a taste for terror, catch Wolfen. Parental discretion advised. Then, 2020 investigates what kept the children silent in the California preschool alleged child molestings. All starts at 8, 7 Central.
Tomorrow. For the baby in your life, the Baby's Room is having its annual store-wide sale up to 40% off on all cribs and accessories. Stop in the Baby's Room and choose from over 60 cribs on display, thousands in stock for immediate delivery. Layaway for as long as you like. The Baby's Room has quality and value. This beautiful Jenny Lind ensemble in a rich maple finish. Each piece just $119.95. The Baby's Room in Lombard, Madison, Arlington Heights, North Chicago, and South Chicago at 3800 West 85th Street.
The Bucks stop here, weeknights at 6:30.
The sound of the surf. It is a pleasant and reassuring sound for human ears. But some of us will never hear it. Some of us will never hear anything. Those of us who are deaf. Tonight, we'll examine a controversial surgical technique, one that helps the deaf to hear. We'll see why a little weekend war is some people's idea of a good time. We'll see just what's in the eye of the beholder when we visit a contest for budding beauticians. And we'll see how Chuck Henry fares against an Aikido master who just may be the most awesome power in town. I'm Paul Moyer. Sit back, relax for a little Eye on Hollywood. There are martial arts practitioners, and there are martial arts masters. Meet a master.
This is Japan, a land of ancient beliefs and customs. Here, people respect the forces of nature, both external and internal. In an attempt to harness these forces, the martial arts were developed, not just as sport, but as a way of life. In Japan, this man is known as Take Sensei, the samurai master. He's a 6th-degree black belt in the martial art of Aikido, one of only a handful of people in the entire world to reach this level.